Let's go ahead and take a look at a bishop sacrifice. Now, in order for it to work, a lot of different things need to be in place. To start off, black has to have castled on the king side, as we highlighted up here. And what white is looking to do is sacrifice his bishop and attack this stronghold or this defended area for black with a lot of different pieces. So essentially white is going to take a bishop and attack right there and put the king in check and force black to make a number of moves. But in order to do this successfully, the bishop needs to have help from other supporting pieces. So let's take a look at how that would play out in a little more detail. To start off, we're going to look at white's knight, and white's knight essentially needs to have access to this g5 square right here. Typically that can be done with the two squares we've highlighted below. Next we look at white's bishop, and white's bishop can usually have access to, is looking to attack the square. It can usually have access from any one of these squares where it can attack the h7 square. Next, the g4 square is going to need some protection. Usually at least one defender. That can either be the dark squared bishop or the h4 pawn. White also is going to need to control the f6 square, as you can see there, and that pawn must be protected in some way by some piece, and they can be protected with using a rook, another pawn, even a dark squared bishop. And of course, lastly, white needs to have a queen with access to either of these two squares right here. It doesn't matter exactly where the queen is, as long as the queen can get access to these squares and work on the attack. Typically speaking, that will be the d1 square. Now if we look in front of us, we'll notice we have an example where we have all of these pieces in place, and we're going to take a look at how the bishop sacrifice would work and different variations of that. So if we look at this board in front of us, we'll look at it's white to move, and we're going to look at the bishop right here. And the bishop is going to attack or capture the piece on the h7 square, so it goes ahead and does that. And what that does is that puts black in check and gives black basically two options. It can either capture the bishop and accept the sacrifice, or it can crawl into a hole. Both options are not very good for black. Let's say black decides to crawl into a hole. Well, white can bring the knight and the queen in tandem and create a lot of havoc on black and probably in the game pretty quickly. Now, if on the other hand, if black decides to take the bishop and accept the sacrifice, okay, here's another variation of how this will play out. If you look at the board here, and we're looking at specifically at the knight, and what white's going to do is move the knight right there, and that puts black in check. And it forces black with a number of options here. Black can either retreat or move forward. And another option for black is simply to capture the checking piece with the queen. However, if black were to capture with a queen, black will lose the queen, as the bishop on the c1 square can recapture there. So there's not a lot of good choices for black. Let's say black decides not to capture with the queen and give up the queen. Well, black could go backwards, and white could simply bring the queen forward to the h5 square and put black in check, forcing black into a corner, and all of a sudden it is checkmate. So that's not a good option for black. Another option for black is simply to move forward to the h6 square. However, that presents some problems for black in that, white can take the knight and simply move forward to this f7 square, and that presents a problem in that black is in check. So black has to move somewhere, and there's basically only two options for black. which exposes black's queen to capture by the knight, and still leaves black's king in a little bit of a predicament in terms of the pressure that white can bring from those moving to those two squares, as we mentioned. Now let's take a look at our last option for black, and that's to simply move the king out. And this is also a not very good option, in that white has access to the queen here, and white can bring the queen forward to the G4 square and put pressure on black in a number of different ways and different variations. So as you can see here, there's a lot of different things you need to have in place to set up a bishop sacrifice, and most of the time we're not going to have that in place, so we're not going to be able to do that, but this just gives us an overview of how that would work should we have these things in place, and how much pressure we can bring about. Thank you for watching.